Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, yesterday we were discussing on advanced interaction modeling, right? That is the chapter 8, where I had discussed a use case relationship about include, extend, then generalization. So if we are having a piece of functionality that is a part of a particular system, so what we are trying to do, we are trying to include that as a part of the use case by using a keyword called as a include. To denote the include, we have a UML notation. We are just using a dashed line with the arrowhead. So and along with that, what we are using a include as a keyword. So that is how we are trying to denote the include keyword. And the next concept that I had discussed is extend relationship. So for extend relationship, what I had discussed, if we want to add an additional behavior to the system, then what we are trying to do, we are trying to use a extension. That means it is the extension of this particular use case. Say for example, if you are trying to take it as a ordering. So what we are taking the extension as a limited order. We are trying to put a restriction in a system. So how much order that a customer has to do. So that is about the extend. Next thing is a generalization. In generalization, what we are trying to put up, we are trying to use a parent use case. So the parent use case behavior has to be derived to the child use cases. So that we are denoting with respect to the UML notation has a triangle with a tail. So where the tail is connected to the child use case and the triangle is being connected to the parent use case. So that is how we are writing the generalization. So the next topic is procedural sequence model. So in the procedural sequence model, we have discussed about all the advanced terminologies that we are trying to use with respect to the use case. So the next thing is we are trying to use a sequence model. So when we are trying to use a sequence model, so in a sequence model, what happens? Objects are going to interact with each other, where all the objects are independent of each other. So when an object is sending a request, so the other object has to send a response with respect to the request or what the message is being conveyed to that particular object. So for response, what we are denoting, we are using a dashed line with the arrowhead back to the source object. So that is how we are trying to indicate a request and a response or the message exchangeability between any two objects. So this can be elaborated as a sequence diagram. Sequence diagram can be elaborated with respect to that. So here what we are trying to have, we are trying to use a passive objects. So the passive, what is we are classifying it as a two different kinds of objects. Okay, so one is an active object and one is a passive object. So when can we say that the objects are active? When the objects are communicating with each other. When both the objects are communicating with each other, then we can say that both the objects are active. So sometimes, all the time, the objects may not be active. In that case, we call those objects as a passive objects when it is not communicating with any of the objects. So till it is being communicating, so what happens? The objects will be in a passive state. So here is an example of computing the stock brokerage system, calculation of a commission, how the commission is being calculated for a stock brokerage system. So here you can see that three different objects. One is a transaction, one is a customer table, and one is a rate table. So in a transaction object, you can see the entire object is active. Okay, so it is a solid rectangle bar which denotes that throughout the communication, so this transaction object is active, whereas the customer table, so whereas a customer in a customer table, what happens, you can see here the dashed line. So this indicates that for some particular period of time, the object will be in a passive state. Then when it receives a communication from the other object, so what happens, the object will become a active. So once the object becomes an active, so what happens, solid rectangle represent, so for this time span period, so this particular, in this time span period, the customer table will be in a active state. So once it receives a message, then it will send a response. So here what we are trying to do, so this what we call it as a lifeline. So the lifeline can be we call it as a it can be in an active state, or it can be in a passive state for the entire period where the object is being existing. So till the object gets destroyed, so that lifeline will be there, but you cannot say that object is dead or object is expired. But what happens, it will be in a active or in a passive state. So for this example, what happens, so the transaction table receives a operation for computing the commission. So once this message is being received for a transaction object, so what it will do, it will send a message to the customer table. So who are the customers who has received the services. So depending upon a number of stocks that has been purchased or sold, so the commission has to be computed. So for that, what we are using the service level as an operation, where we are passing the customer has an object to the argument to the service level. So based on this argument, so what happens, whatever the whoever the different customers are there, so whatever the transaction that they have done, so it has to fetch all the transaction details, and the level of transaction will be fetched, and the message will be conveyed back to the transaction table. So once that customer service level is being received by the transaction level, so what happens in the next time span, so the transaction object will again send the message to the rate table. So here, until it receives a message, it receives any message, so this rate table rate table will be in a passive state. So once it receives a message, so what happens, this object will become a active. So here what type of message that the rate table is receiving, so it is receiving an operation called as a calculate commission. So this calculate commission and the service level, whatever we are trying to define, so this will be available in a class diagram as a method. So the same method can be taken as a message communication in a sequence diagram. So here what happens, when it comes as a calculate commission, so it will take two arguments. One is a level and one is a transaction. So what is this level? Level we have fetched from a customer table. So who are the customers, at what level, what are the different transactions that that the customer has made. So that details and the transaction details will be passed as an argument to calculate the commission. So this formula will be available in a rate table. So per share, what is the commission? Okay, so depending upon that, it will calculate the commission per share, how many number of shares has been sold by the customer, and how many he has purchased. So based on that, the stock brokerage is going to get the commission. So here what happens hmm, once it receives the message, so it will calculate the commission and that value will be written back as a reply message to the transaction object. So whatever the transaction value or whatever the commission value that the transaction object has got, so that value will be sent back to the other object from which object this the transaction is received. So this is how we are trying to use a sequence diagram along with the passive object. So here what happens? So this entire solid rectangle, what we call it as a period of time or a lifeline. This entire thing we call it as a activation or a flow of control. So which indicates when the object is being active or when the object is being passive. So that is what we are doing with the sequence diagram with the passive object. And the next topic is we have a sequence diagram with the transient object. Okay, so here what happens when we are using a different kinds of objects, so how the transition or how the messages can be conveyed from one object to the other object, or how the objects can be created, how it is going to how it is going to broaden the lifeline activity, lifeline activation along with the entire objects when the objects are alive. So here what we have a three objects in this diagram: object A, object B, and the object C. So you can see here during the entire period, the object A is in an active state, whereas the object B is passive for some period of time. Then the object is being active throughout the lifeline. So when it comes, so here we can see one more rectangle box where it is where it is having a calling notation. That means here what happens, the object A is in a active state, it will call for an operation E. So when the operation E is being invoked, it has an argument has C and D. That means the operations has to be performed and that resultant value has to be calculated. So this operation is being calculated by the object B. So when the object B receives this message, so at that instance of time, the object B will become active state. So after becoming active, so what happens? The object B has to create one more object. So for creating one more object, it uses the operation called as a create C, and it is going to pass an argument. So the object C is created, and it can be destroyed after some period of time. So here once the object C is being created, so what happens, it has to perform an operation C what has been activated by the object A. So whatever the operations that has to be executed on behalf by the object C. So what happens? It will try to execute. It is going to calculate, it is going to perform that operation by using the arguments M and it will reply back. So when it reply back, you can see here in an object B, there is a small rectangle box. So this small rectangle box, what we call it as a notation for a call is an arrow. That means this particular if we are calling this object, we are activating this object B once again by invoking through the invocation of through the activation of the operation E. Once this activation is being called, so what happens? Uh, the tail arrow is somewhere along the rectangle of the calling activation. So here, this is what we call it as a tail of an arrow. So the front is an arrow, this back side we call it as a tail. So it will be attached to the rectangle for the activation of the entire procedure. So what happens? The arrow head aligns on the top of the rectangle, and it says that it is a newly created activation because it has been called by the other object. So what happens once it invokes the operation? So whatever the resultant is there, so again the resultant value will be sent back to the object C. So this entire period from here to here, where the operation E is being invoked and where the result E is obtained from the object B. So this entire period of time we call it as a execute order. So it will execute the order and it will return back the result to the object C. Again, what happens? Whatever the result that has been obtained, so that result will be conveyed back to the object B, and this object is no further, there is no further usage of this object, so we are trying to destroy this object C. So once the object B receives the result, so that has to be conveyed back to the object A. So it will rename the result E as a result V, and it will send back to the object A. So that is how the object transition is going to work. Do you have any doubt in this? Okay. So here what happens? How to destroy? There is a UML notation for destruction of an object. So for destroying an object, we are representing it with respect to the X mark. So this X marks indicates that once if there are no more further communication by the object, that particular object can be destroyed, and it says that it is a end of the lifeline of that particular object. So that is how we are trying to destroy the objects in a UML. Okay, so there are some guidelines for procedural sequence model. So I said about the active and a passive object. So we need to know the differentiation between what is an active object and a passive object. So the difference between to differentiate between an active and passive object, most objects will be in a passive state, and they lack their own thread of control. So whatever we call it as a focus of control or a line of control. So it does not have its own thread of control, because it will be invoked by the other objects. So when the objects are trying to be invoked from the other objects, so that those kind of objects we call it as a passive object. So how do we define an object? So an object which has its own focus on a life of control. So this kind of objects we call it as a active object. So in this case, we can say that object A is a active object, whereas object B we call it as a passive object, because this line of focus of control has being controlled by the object. So only when it receives a message at that particular period of time, that the objects will be invoked. So those we call it as a passive object. And next guideline is we need to have advanced features. So what type of advanced features that we can have? We have to show with respect to the implementation of a sequence diagram. So here what we are trying to use. So here we are trying to use a active objects, passive objects. So when the objects are being controlled, so how to invoke the objects, how to create an object by using the existing object. So here we have used in this diagram, we have used a create C as an argument. So the object is not being existing. We are trying to create an object, then we are trying to communicate with that object. So those are some of the advanced features that are available under a sequence diagram. So we need to look into the advanced feature depending upon a implement. So which depends upon a which depends upon a different features of the diagrams. So how the diagram is going to behave. So depending upon that, we are trying to have a implementation further. So that those are the two different guidelines of a procedural sequence model. So next we have a special constructs for a activity model. That means what we have seen for a different features that are available for a use case and a sequence model. Similarly, activity model is one of the interaction model. Again this activity model has some of the constraints or some of the special constructs where we are using this for a large and a complex system. So when we are developing a different complex system, we are trying to use this. So the first case is what we are using is a sending and receiving of the signal. So when it comes for a sending and receiving of a signal, what we can consider? We can consider a workstation which is being turned on. So here what we are using, we are trying to use a boot sequence, and then it requests for a user login. So once the user login and password is being entered to that entered, so what happens? The workstation asks for the queries for validating the user. So once the validation of the user has happened, so next what happens? It will start the process and it will continue to execute all the procedures that has been specified. So we can have a activity diagram like this. So here what we have. Okay, so from the initial state, we have to execute a boot sequence. So this is being taken care by the workstation. So when it want to execute some sequence of instruction, so the workstation asks for the user login. So what the user will do? The user will provide a username and a password. So once the username and a password is being sent, so you can see here, here we are having a different notation, that is a pentagon notation. So in a pentagon notation, it will request for the validation. So whatever the username and the password is being entered, so it will go for a validation whether whatever the username is there, so whether he is a authenticated user or not. So after request for a validation, so what happens? It will send those information to the network. So this dashed line, what we are connecting to the object called as a network. So this we call it as a sending of signal. Okay. So here what happens? It will send those information to the network and it will send the information for waiting a response. So until it receives a confirmation, so what happens? This user will be waiting for a response for the validation. Say for example, you will provide, say if you are using a Gmail, when you have entered your username and a password, so what happens, it will take for 3 to 4 seconds for a validation. So if your username and password are whatever the credentials that you have entered, so if it is a valid, then what happens, you will be navigated to the Gmail inbox. So similarly, till that period of time, you will be in a you will be waiting for the response from the network. So similarly, the same thing is going to happen in a workstation. So till the network is sending a response, so what happens, the entire system will be in a waiting state. It will be keep on waiting for the response until the network is going to reply for the confirmation of the credentials, whether he is a valid user or not. So once the confirmation is being obtained, so how the connectivity of receiving this, we call it as a receiving a confirmation. So again, this notation is like a pentagonal, which uh, where we are trying to put this arrow or edges inside the rectangle box. So here what happens, it will receive a signal from the network and receive the confirmation, and the system will be ready to provide the service. So this is how the activation of the signals that we are trying to do for sending and receiving the signals. So how the network is going to validate based on the user input. So any doubts in this? Anyone? Any doubts? Okay, so that is about the sending and receiving of a signal. So that is one of the special constructs that are available in a activity diagram. So the next thing is streamlining. Okay. So in a, what does this streamline mean? Say for example, the user has to perform a activity for a particular business model. So in any organization, if you are going to consider, there are different vertical domains. So it can be a sales, it can be a finance, marketing, purchasing. So there are different departments that are taken care by a particular organization. So each department is having its own way of participating for a organization. So for this, what we are trying to do, we are trying to assign the activity for a particular person where there is a high level sufficient participation among the activities in a participation for the activities among the organization. So here, since we are having a different departments, what we can need to observe the activation. So what we are using, we are trying to divide into the different columns and the lines. So where we are having one particular column has a sales, one particular column has a finance, and one particular column has a marketing. So how they are going to contribute to the particular organization. So each column, what we call it, each column we call it as a swim lane. So why we are going to call this type of concept as a swim lane? Because it comes under the analogy of a swimming pool. So when you are going to consider a swimming pool, so in a swimming pool, what they will put, they are going to put a vertical lines when there is a competition with they should not cross the order, each and every participants. If there are 10 participants, there would be a 9 different lines that are put up in a middle. So, based on the analogy of the swimming pool, so this concept of swim lane concept is being put up for a activity diagram. So what does this swim lane indicates? So the swim lane indicates that is a performance performed by a particular person with respect to the organization. Say for example, if I am putting here as a say, so this solid line indicates a swim lane. So the person should not cross over this particular line. So that is how we are trying to indicate both. And the next thing is we are putting the boundaries to indicate the interaction among the different organizations where we are going to have where we are going to take care about the different organization and different departments independently. So to handle those interactions, we are trying to put up this boundary across the particular organization. Okay. So here we have an example of a here we have an example as a flight attendant, ground crew, and a catering. So what the flight attendant will do? So initially, there will be a crew member of a flight. So where the task is being divided into 3 different tasks. So one thing is we have a action called as a clean crash. So the ground crew can add the fuel, and there is a catering person who is responsible for loading the food and the drink. So here what happens? So all the 3 process has to happen simultaneously without affecting the work of each other. So here what we have put up? We have put up all this 3 different process has a swim lane. So this line we call it as a boundaries. So they should not cross the boundaries. That's the reason we call this as a swim lane. So the flight attendant, what is the working of a flight attendant? He is going to clean all the trashes that are available in a flight. So the ground crew member is responsible to add the fuel to the flight. So once all the 3 process is being completed, so we are trying to join by using a synchronization bar. So once that has been done, so the next activity is going to be taken care by the captains. So that is how the activity diagram is going to work with respect to the swim lane. So this is an example of a flight attendant, but we can also draw this diagram for a various application. So next we have a object flow. So in a object flow, what we are having. So in a object flow, we are trying to use operations between different objects, and what type of argument that we are trying to pass for the objects, and how the results can be obtained. So to do that, the activity diagram shows the objects, how the inputs has been taken, what are the activities that has been performed under that particular action or a activity, and how the output is going to flow with respect to the next activity. So that we are trying to call it as a an input and output arrow implies a flow control. So based on this object flow control, what we are trying to do, we are trying to execute the activities with respect to the input and the output. So we can also represent that with respect to the UML object by placing the name of the state with respect to the square bracket. Okay, so here is a diagram. Okay, so the object flows or the control flow can be taken care with respect to input or output arrow. So here is an example of a here is an example of a aeroplane. So where we are considering this aeroplane at the gate. So the square bracket, whatever we have written here, so that indicates a state of an object. So the aeroplane will be landed or it will be placed at the gate. So from the gate, it has to leave the gate. The next action is leaving the gate. So after leaving the gate, so what is the next state? We have a aeroplane with the taxiing. So once all the taxiing is going to happen, once all is being considered into the aeroplane, so what is the next step? The aeroplane should go to the action called as a takeoff. So once the aeroplane gets into the takeoff state, so what happens? The aeroplane from the takeoff state, it will be we are considering the object as an aeroplane. So in flight, so that means it will be in the flying state till it gets landing. So the next operation is a landing. So from in flight or from the flying state, it has to move to the landing state where the destination is being put up. So once it comes to the landing state, again what happens? It will go to the taxiing state. So where all the passengers are going to get ready to move on from the flight. So what happens after taxiing state? The flight may take a next can take a next trip, or it can be parked at a particular gate that are available for that particular uh, aeroplane. So here after that airplane is being parked at a particular gate, so what happens? It will reach back to the original state, that is aeroplane at gate. It will be parked under a gate. So this is the flow. This arrow, what we call it as a object flows. So how the input is being taken and what is the next state and how the output is being extracted. So based on this flow diagram, so we are trying to have a control over the objects. So that is about the chapter 8. So you have any doubts? Yes, speak out. Do you have any doubts with respect to this chapter 8? Okay, so that is about a module 2. So here it completes a module 2 which has a 4 different chapters. Just I'll give a fast recap what you have done with respect to the module 2. Okay, so in our module 2, that is in our chapter 5, what we have discussed about a different uh, what is a state model. So what is an event? So the classification of an event. So that is a signal event, change event, and a time event. So after that, I had discussed on a state. So how to represent a state and what is the notation of a state. So we are trying to use a UML notation as a rounded rectangle box for a state symbol. So once the state is being defined, we had an example of a alarm ringing. So we have discussed on a characteristics of a alarm ringing, that how to set an alarm and how to how the alarm is going to be in a ringing state. So what is the response that we are trying to get, what event is going to happen. And the next topic is transition and a condition. So how do we identify the transition? The transition is nothing but a moving from one process to the one state to the another state. So where the state is going to identify, where we are going to observe the state with respect to the different conditions. So that condition we call it as a guarded condition, which we are trying to represent in terms of a Boolean expression. So that Boolean expression we are trying, that guarded condition we are just trying to put up in a square brackets in a particular state model. So next thing is a state diagram. So when we are representing a state diagram, what we had taken an example of a telephone line where it moves for a different states. So I told this telephone diagram is a very important concept. They may ask you for writing a state diagram for a telephone line. So we need to from the idle state it will move to the dial tone, from dial tone to dialing and connecting, and from connecting to ringing state connected, and later it will move to the disconnect. So once the phone gets disconnected, again it will move back to the on hook state. And next thing is one shot state diagram. So in a one shot state diagram, I had taken an example of a chess. Okay, so from the from initial state it will move to the white turn. Then from once the white completes its turn, it will move to the black. Then from black to white. So that entire process will be under a loop. So when it's going to end, when any one of them gives a checkmate for them. So other than that, what we had discussed, so we can also have an entry and an exit point. So the entry point we call it as a starting point, and the exit point we are denoting. We are trying to denote with the notation X. So here, what we are trying to do, we are trying to identify when the black is going to win. So if the black is going to put a checkmate for a white, then the black is going to win, or else the white is going to win, or else sometimes the match can be drawn. So that is how we are trying to represent the state diagram. So the next thing is state diagram behavior. In a state diagram behavior, we are trying to represent with respect to activities. To have activities, what we are using the keyword do along with the slash. After the slash, we are trying to specify the what activity that has to be considered. And next, in the entry and the exit activities, we have used an example of a automatic garage door opener. So where it moves from a closing state to the opening state, from opening to open when you are trying to put the motor off or motor on. So based on a on or off switch, it is going to switch between the different states. And the next thing is we are trying to use a complete transaction. So in a complete transaction, so when all the activities are entered and if no further activities are there, at least whatever the guarded conditions that we have specified. So if it is trying to execute at least once, then we call that as a complete transaction. So that is about a chapter 5. And in a chapter 6, we had discussed about the problems with the state diagrams. So if you are having a more number of states, whatever the n independent states are there, so we are trying to use this n independent state with respect to the Boolean conditions, so that we are trying to have 2 to the power of n number of states. So when we are having a to the n number of states, how the state is going to behave. So other than that, what we are having the expansion of a state. So when the model is a too complex model, then what we are trying to do, we are trying to represent the state model as a sub diagram. So where this sub diagram we are trying to view along with the sub diagram name with the separated with the colon, and the state, so that it will move to the sub diagram. When it moves to that particular state, it will execute those states and it will come back to the original diagram. And the next thing is nested state telephone diagram. So in a nested state diagram, whatever the telephone line that we have considered, so from the dial tone up to the disconnected, we are putting that as an active state. And we have taken a one state called as an idle state. So that is a separate state. So whatever the activities that we are performing under the activities active state, so that we are putting up in terms of a nested state. And we had taken an example of a car transmission for a nested state, where we are using with respect to the neutral when we are trying to push from a neutral state to the reverse gear. Again, we will come back to the neutral. So the driver can take a different gears. Either he can move from a first gear, if we put the upshift, then from first to second, second to third. Again, he can come back to the first gear by using the downshift operator. Next thing is signal generalization. So we can use a signal generalization with respect to the signal class by using a keyword signal, where we are trying to have an inheritance with respect to the mouse button and a keyboard character. And under the mouse button, we have a signal button up and down. And under the keyboard, what we had a control and a graphics. For the graphics, we are using a punctuation, alphanumeric and a space characters. So these are represented as a graphical characters. Next, we had discussed on aggregation concurrency. So the car will be made up of different components like transmission, ignition, accelerator, and a brake. So for each of these components, we had written a state model. So how it can achieve a different states, and based on the different states, how it is going to work. And synchronization of activities. For synchronization of activities, we had two examples. So one is a playing with respect to the rubber game. So where we are taking with respect to the direction north-south vulnerability and east-west vulnerability, both are being executed in parallel. And one more example is a cash dispenser. We are trying to use a cash dispenser, where we are trying to have two different events. So dispensing of a cash and ejecting of the card, depending upon a situation. And we had a sample state model of a thermostat furnace. So where we had written a different states for a season switch, fan switch, user interface, furnace relay, air conditioner, run indicator, and a fan relay. So that is about the sixth chapter. So you have any doubts? So just I am going to conclude this chapter 8. So next class, in a Monday class, I am going to start the module 3.